to, of course, put my heart on the platter for our friend, Renard Johnson, and of course, Don Williams, and Renee Johnson, the team that worked so hard to make today possible. The main reason I have the honor of being with you today. You're all brilliant business people, caring and committed and compassionate professionals and vital community stewards. You are the essence of my experiment, the stand to live off Black businesses. I did it for you, through you, and with you, to show you off to the world and lift you up. And now, folks like you, all over the country, are coming together to lift me up and for us to finally build a movement around Black businesses. So thank you, thank you, thank you for making today possible. And thank you, Grand Rapids Black Chamber and the special Black community you represent and serve here for welcoming me so warmly and lovingly and for cheering me on since I began this journey over 5 years ago now. And since then, so many wonderful organizations have hosted me here, linking arms with me, enabling me to share my story, my data, this message, this movement with new audiences. So if we have anybody from Local First or Partners for Racism-Free Community, my TEDxers, TEDx Grand Rapids, Barbara and Scott Welch, I'd like to honor them and everyone at their company, Mosaic Partners, and my new sister from Another Vista, Joy Fossil, and everyone at the Barnum Law Firm. And last but not least, I'd love to share a hug with Mercedes Farragon, my good buddy. Hi, sweetheart. She's the president of the Maggie Anderson Grand Rapids Chapter Fan Club. My best friend here in the city. My family thanks all of you, all of these fantastic organizations that are really coming together now around this message. All of these events and relationships have led up to today, to my finally uniting with my chamber, my Grand Rapids Black Chamber of Commerce. Today, the seeds of hope and knowledge I've hoped to plant in Grand Rapids may be cultivated and blossom into wonderful new opportunities for our entrepreneurs, growth for our businesses, and jobs and wealth in our neighborhoods, pride and hope for our kids. I love this chamber, I really do, and I have many friends in the room. But for those of you who don't know me, let me take a little bit of time to introduce myself. I am Maggie Anderson, and yes, like the flyers in the program state, I took a public pledge to completely live off Black businesses, support Black professionals, and buy Black-made products for 1 year. You know that our controversial journey and sacrifice dominated headlines, front pages, Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, LA Times, CNN, C-SPAN, CBS News, Tommy Good Morning Show, Black Enterprise, Essence, countless TV and radio shows, newspapers, blogs, and magazines. We touched millions. So I guess I'm supposed to be some kind of leader now, some kind of celebrity, taking calls, and people like Diane Sawyer and Chris Webber called me, and White House, and everyone in between about this new modern-day economic version of the civil rights movement. But let me tell you, good people of Grand Rapids, we just another average bougie Black heart. John's what you saw there. He's a finance guy. He worked his way from Detroit to Harvard, got his MBA at Kellogg. I'm the daughter of Cuban immigrants who came to this country in 1967 with nothing. I grew up in one of the poorest, blackest parts of Miami, Liberty City, and ran away from Liberty City to Emory University in Atlanta, worked as an aide to John Lewis, and I attended the University of Chicago, got my MBA, my law degree, learned constitutional law, among other things, from the President of the United States of America. We fell in love while we were both in graduate school. Now that's John and I. Yeah. We bought our home in a pricey suburb, had 2 beautiful babies, and we're living out our awesome American dream story. We loved it. Watching my law school professor, my husband's hooping buddy from Harvard, the dorky guy who lived around the corner in Hyde Park, a member of my church, become the President of the United States. Now our children know that someone who looks like them can be president. But we still thought about the fact that a lot of Black kids, like so many of the ones growing up on the west side of Chicago and the predominantly Black areas all over the country, can go their whole young lives and hardly ever see a business owner who looks like them. And how for every other American child, regardless of their race, that essential encounter is a part of everyday life. It seems like a dream, doesn't it? This story of strong, locally owned businesses, keeping the community vibrant, of Black-owned banks helping young entrepreneurs get started, of Black family businesses being passed down from generation to generation, of Black-owned businesses coming together to create funds for entrepreneurship and scholarships and professional and social service organizations and faith organizations. The community had to support the businesses because the businesses supported the community. That was kind of the implicit understanding. So remember this Black history fact, that unemployment in the Black community was statistically insignificant in places like Tulsa, like Sugar Hill and Jacksonville and Harlem, like Sustrunk in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Our unemployment was nationally lower than that of whites all the way through 1940 when we supported each other. Strong families, neighborhood schools, businesses like the ones represented by this chamber. Another fact, Black families circulated hundreds of millions of dollars within their community. In some places, the dollar was recycled for years in the hotels, the banks, insurance companies, hardware stores, shipping yards, steel mills, farming, regions, brokerages, department stores. This is the story. This is the story that we need to start telling again. This is the story that the chamber needs to live and tell and to keep alive. It was clear, just like it was for our Jewish friends, and as they came here and made their struggle on their own, Black Americans too would be able to define and cultivate our future, our culture, our communities could prosper too. We could realize and represent true social equality if we focused on our economic, not just our political empowerment, our economic rights, not just our civil rights. Booker T knew that, Dr. King knew that, those who opposed them knew that. Another Black history fact for you. Over 90% of the lynchings of Blacks that happened during Reconstruction and Jim Crow were of business owners. Economic terrorism. In that area they called Black Wall Street in Tulsa was bombed, then burned, crowds watched, and they called them Negro barbecues. I know, it's sad, but I have to start our discussion this way. I gotta show you all this violent imagery and all these sad and horrifying facts to give you some context. I have to do this because so many people think I just woke up one day from a paradigm of hate and vengeance to take this stand. It was love. Love for those slain entrepreneurs and those torched towns, for the history that they created and we so easily dismiss. For those freedom fighters, love for them fuel my passion and commitment to struggling Black businesses and neighborhoods now. So let's include them and those business owners and their families and their communities and the terrorism and discrimination they endured in the picture of racism that so many ascribe to me and to my Black chambers. Let's think about them as we try to build up the Black businesses that do still exist now. I want you to include them in our luncheon. Whoever you are, business owner or not, Black or not, envision them, think of them, and bring them into this pretty Grand Rapids day. Because I think of them often. Because every abandoned storefront or lot in Liberty City, every boarded up business on the west side of Chicago is an affront to them. Each time we dismiss every business owner from our community because of a bad experience we had with one 2 years ago, we dishonor them. Each time we do not do more to tell our story to our corporate partners so that they may join this chamber and do their part to help Black businesses succeed. Each time we don't engage our pastors so that our churches can meet fellow chamber members and support them, each time we don't do that, we forget them, those brave men who were hanged for trying to keep a store. I dream of our beautiful Black history, those lost legends, those distant and now forever destroyed dreams. I dream of that now defunct evolution of Black business, and I wake up sad all the time. But knowing, just as sure as there's a sun outside, and Renard and Don are out there hustling and bustling and begging and bribing and blackmailing for our Black businesses, just as sure as those two occurrences are incontrovertible facts in nature, I woke up today a little happier in Grand Rapids because I know something else for certain because I'm in Grand Rapids. We can, in Grand Rapids, recreate the power and the process of entrepreneurship to empowerment that pulled us out of Reconstruction, carried us through Jim Crow, and enabled the Civil Rights Movement. We can relive and revive that process and that power in an integrated context and in an inclusive manner. But what I don't want to happen when I say inclusion, that doesn't mean invisibility. This pride for our culture and our community, this desire to work with each other, to ensure our collective advancement, this right to demand more Black, not just minority, more Black businesses, all of that, it can't be co-opted. Those rights, those stories have to be celebrated. Our culture shall not be co-opted. We wouldn't settle for that. Our history, our traditions, our stories, and our struggles are unique. They have a unique value and importance to our children, and so do our businesses. And I say that we should not allow co-opting anymore when it comes to our businesses. Renard, of course, wants his businesses to be included, but not invisible. Let's be visible, let's be proud, productive like we always have, and like we need to be again. Because in Asian communities in America, a dollar circulates in those communities, banks, retailers, and business professionals for about 28 days before it's spent with outsiders. In the Jewish community, that circulation period is 19 to 21 days. In the WASP community, Joy, I know that we can't say WASP anymore. Yeah, you taught me last night to have a whole new definition for white people, but y'all know what I'm talking about. In predominantly white communities, even there, they keep their dollar for about 17 days. My Hispanic brothers and sisters keep their dollar for 7 days. In the black community, the community we have come together to build up, the dollar lives for 6 hours. 6 hours. So how are we supposed to make it? How dare anyone criticize or worse pity the black situation without first considering this lack of an economic foundation? There is violence and drugs in black areas, yes. But those areas where crime is rampant, there are no locally owned businesses anymore. Maybe if those kids saw more professionals and business owners who look like them every day, they would feel more vested in the community. They would have more role models to inspire them. There would be more jobs, more options. But we don't talk about those 6 hours. It's our responsibility. Yes, we're entitled to more support, more opportunity, more engagement, more visibility. But we gotta do our work first. This respect, this partnering and support that I want to see more of in Grand Rapids, it has to be earned. That's it. It has to be earned. We can't dare ask anybody else to value and engage our businesses if we aren't doing it first. We have to have that down to a science, to a T. And when we do that, Donald and I have to ask our friends whether they want to support our mission. They're going to come to him as they come to me, ready to join a movement, not support a mission. I hope that we can understand the difference between supporting a mission and joining a movement. This story, my story of empowerment, my new story I want us to start spreading, comes from a long line of industrious, intelligent black business people. People like Marie Stewart. I want to introduce you to Marie today. 1832, Marie Stewart stood in front of an audience of blacks and a few whites, men and women, in Boston's Franklin Hall. She said, "Daughters of Africa, awake. It is of no use for us to sit with our hands folded, hanging our heads. Let us make a mighty effort and arise. Let's build a store of our own. Fill one side with dry goods and the other with groceries. Do you ask, where is the money? We have spent more than enough for nonsense to do what building we should want." 1832. Stewart was quite possibly the first black person, male or female, to call publicly for blacks to support each other in business. I'm sure a lot of y'all didn't know that. 2 devastating events would light the fire of righteousness in Marie. Her husband died 3 years after they got married from heart disease. Then her husband's white business associates robbed her family of their estate. Instead of crumbling to the aftermath of such tragedy, Stewart got angry and inspired. She wrote pieces, she spoke publicly, she called on blacks to lift themselves up. Sounds like anybody you know? From their spiritual and educational and economic depths, nearly a decade before Brother Frederick Douglass started public outcries about racial injustice. I borrow my voice from Marie. Now you need to use her voice too. Use her voice. Make it yours. Use Dr. King's voice. Dr. King was fighting for economic empowerment, for those of you who did not know this, not just basic human rights. Right. He was fighting for our businesses, not just the right to shop in everyone else's. Black-owned businesses. If that's anything you learned from me today, is it's okay to say black and business in the same sentence. He said, we got to strengthen black institutions. I call upon you to take your money out of the banks downtown and deposit your money into Tri-State Bank. We want to have a bank-in movement in Memphis, which is telling you to follow what we're doing. Put your money there. You have 6 or 7 black insurance companies in Memphis. take out your insurance there. We want to have an insurance in. Dr. King said that. I don't know if y'all understand what I just said. He died telling us to support these businesses so they can build up our community, our institutions, and we did not. Now those businesses do not exist. So I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, black and not, as Americans, how does that make you feel? Are you saying to yourself, wow, what happened to those businesses, Maggie? And what happened to the jobs and wealth that they must have created? Do you wonder, like I do, what could have happened had we heeded Dr. King's charge? How those communities might have prospered? Where the black community would be now? Could this great country have actually had an Aetna, Liberty Mutual, or New York Life, or Bank of America, or Fifth Third, started by an African-American family? Are you thinking, wouldn't that have been a great representation of America's progress? Maybe King was onto something, asking consumers and business owners to support black institutions like that. Maybe you're stretching this a little, like I know my friend Joy is, like I did when it hit me, when I found out that there were hundreds of black insurance companies in America, and now there's maybe one or two. Okay, so no insurance companies. How about hotel chain, grocery chain, consumer goods giant, paint company, string of coffee shops? Black people have been here 400 years. Wouldn't it be nice for S.C. Johnson, a family company, to conceivably be an African-American Johnson? Wouldn't that be a wonderful manifestation of Dr. King's dream? Maybe your mind is buzzing you now. It's hitting you how weird it is. In most instances, when you hear a name like Johnson, you think of a black person. Like Renee Johnson, like Nara Johnson. But in this instance, you know S.C. Johnson, a family company, is not a black family. And it's not because you study the history of that company. It's simply because a big company like that cannot be black owned. That's the kind of understanding our kids have now. They know that if they go to a local business, the owner will not look like them, and they assume, and they're right, that none of the big American firms and brands come from families that look like theirs. That is the truth. That is what our kids are going through. That was, I lost myself for a second. Oh, the kids, the families, that's right. Our kids are devastated by the fact that their families are not represented in America's supply chains, and they're devastated by the fact that when they go to their own corner, they can't see someone who looks like them. Langston Hughes, in his Ballad of Booker T, talked about this same phenomenon. He said, lay down your head, your heart, and your hand. Your fate is here and not afar, so let down your bucket where you are. Langston Hughes talked about that in his Ballad of Booker T. He was telling business owners to use their hearts, their heads, and their souls to build up black businesses. I use Langston's voice, Marie's voice, and King's voice, and I hope that you will make theirs your voice too. Your fate is here and not afar, so let down your bucket where you are. So I hope that we can set our bucket down in Grand Rapids. We have to do it for these children who can't dream of being in a room like this because they're limited by confining circumstances of restricted reality that relegate them and doom them to inferior education, environments, and levels of esteem. I did that here, and I bring that here to Grand Rapids today, especially for those kids. Those economically deprived places they come from that tell them they're not good enough to go to college, to own a home, or own a business. Not good enough to be a partner at a big law firm like Barnum. Not good enough to buy and own a beauty shop like our beautiful Josephine just did. That problematic and unfair situation tells those children in Grand Rapids that they're not good enough and that their people are not good enough to build and maintain the families, the businesses, and neighborhoods that would support them if they did decide to create a business. Let's show those children something different. Let's show them Marie. Let's show them Marie's descendants like Josephine. Prove to these kids that Marie's spirit is not dead. She said it's of no use for us to sit with our hands folded, hanging our heads. Let us make a mighty effort and arise. Let us raise a fund ourselves. Unite and build a store of your own. We have spent more than enough on nonsense to do what we want. That's why you created this chamber years ago, at the same time that I was doing my year. Show the slide before me, please. Oh, thank you. I did after that year for Jordan. Isn't she precious? I met her during that year. I wouldn't have met Jordan or gone anywhere near her neighborhood, Bronzeville, where she lived, had it not been for our famous pledge. Bronzeville on the south side of Chicago, real dilapidated, lots of crime, drugs, and depression. Still, Jordan dreamt of opening a children's clothing store in that neighborhood. And then she did with her mother and her grandmother, and theirs and Jordan's grandfather's life savings. The store was called Jordan's Closets. Next slide. Not the children's place, the national chain where I was buying my clothes for my daughters. It didn't have as much selection as you would find at Sears or JCPenney, but it was the most beautiful children's clothing store I'd ever seen. Great selection, great prices, great service, very clean. And sometimes we come not just to shop, but to visit, because Jordan, who was 7, was like a big sister to my girls who were 3 and 4 then. And on Saturday evenings, her mom, Jocelyn, next slide, would use the place to host tea parties and book clubs for little girls in the community. It was so cute. And on Sunday, she had a charm school and taught etiquette to little girls in the community. What a wonderful place for me to spend my money. What a wonderful family to support. Next slide. Jordan's Closets is gone. The business, the tea parties, the family, the hope, the revenue, the taxes, the local school system, the increased property value for that block, the hope that other businesses will occupy nearby storefronts and ward off drug and gang activity. All that's gone. All that whole dream, that's just gone. Now, I usually share that story to show people the impact of their spending decisions and demonstrate the special need for and role of locally owned Black businesses in Black neighborhoods. And mostly because she was just so doggone cute. She's a real sweetie pie, our Jordan. But today, I bring you Jordan and her family for another reason. I want to give you another reason that Jordan and Jocelyn's business failed. Jocelyn did not have a chamber. She did not have a Black business community organized and waiting, conspiring for her success. The consumers didn't respond like they should have, but they probably didn't even know she was there. And Black businesses don't have the luxury of starting because we want to, and we have a dream, and it's something that we like to do. We have to be a lot more thoughtful, we have to be a lot more organized. We don't have a local chamber in Bronzeville in the south side of Chicago. Jocelyn was actually trying to start one when she started that business. Next slide. And there were a few other great businesses in that area that I supported. That's my coffee shop. That was John's Men's Clothing Store. That's where Queen's Grocery Store was. All of those businesses, all of the great businesses, great owners, they're all gone. All those businesses were there, disparate, just kind of hanging around. They knew each other, but they were not working together. All of those businesses are gone. You know how we say it takes a village to raise a child? Well, it takes a chamber to raise a business community so that we can raise that child. Let's go back to Jordan, the first slide. So we can tell our little Princess Jordan all day long, believe in yourself, Jordan, work hard, Jordan, you can be whatever you want. But then she tries, or she looks outside, or looks on TV, and everything tells her different. Businesses like Jordan's Closets come and go all the time, mostly because we're not supporting them. We've got to show Jordan, not just tell her. That's too easy. Let's show her that it makes sense to be Black and in business. The way young Chinese kids see themselves, the way the Chaldeans see themselves in Detroit. I don't want to just tell Jordan, tell my own daughters that they used to be able to go to the corner for ice cream or candy and see someone who looks like them and looks out for them. Tell them what we used to have and how we used to act and how we used to love each other and support each other. Why would I tell my own children that they could start a business when we couldn't come together to support the one we had and I took her to? Why would I tell her that? Because of Sojourner, because of Dr. King, because of Harriet. That's why I'm supposed to tell my kids that they can own businesses now? It's not right. We can't keep telling these kids are most precious to look backward or in a book for inspiration. You need to inspire them. It's your job to inspire them. In the 1930s, our kids, we had 6,400 grocery stores in the Black community. At the beginning of the 21st century, there were only 19 Black-owned grocery stores in the United States. Now our researchers say that they can only find evidence of 3 to 8 full-service grocery stores owned by Black people in the United States of America. There are 48 Hispanic-owned grocery chains with 10 or more units, some of them with over 100 units. Most of them have only popped up in the past few years. Who is shopping at those stores? Who enabled that growth? Whose products are on the shelves? Whose music is playing? Who's getting jobs at those stores? Hispanic businesses, Hispanic employees, Hispanic children. Who's getting sent to college off that money? And nothing is wrong with that. That's the way it should be. Good for them. I shop there too. Orale, lucha to my brothers and sisters. But we can do the same. That's the only point I'm trying to make. And that study, based on my family's experiment, we showed that out of our close to $1 trillion in buying power, 3% of that goes back to our businesses. If we can get that number to 10%, Kellogg proved, we could create 1 million jobs in America with the money we already spend, the businesses we already have. 1 million jobs in America if we were to just support the businesses we already have in our community. And I'm not just saying, go see Josephine at JoJo's beauty salon. I'm not just saying that. I'm saying that we can support those businesses that are affiliated with our mainstream brands. Go to your black-owned McDonald's. See Renee, your black-owned New York Life insurance agent. When you go support them and JoJo, and we get that number to 10%, then you'll have a movement in Grand Rapids. That's how we fight. With knowledge, with numbers. The numbers will set us free. We focus on our businesses and our numbers. We can change Grand Rapids. Let me give you some numbers, because I did a little research. Let's talk about Hennessy. 60% of Hennessy sales come from just a segment of our community. Young people in the black community account for 60% of Hennessy's U.S. sales. Oh, let me back up for a minute for my new friends in Grand Rapids. I know we got a lot of young people in the audience, and I know we got a lot of church-going folks here in Grand Rapids. So I'm sure none of you know what Hennessy is, but I'm trying as an academic to give you some data to back up my point. I know you don't know what Hennessy is, but Hennessy is a cognac. And it's a very popular cognac among black people, not you black people, but other black people. Anyway, 60% of Hennessy's money comes from young black people. They don't even disclose to the Wall Street Journal the total amount they make from the whole black community, but estimates put it at over 80% of their U.S. revenues. And with their company wholly dependent on this community to survive, they don't even have a supplier diversity program. That means they don't have a mission statement, the cute black people on the website, a little handshake. They don't have none of that stuff. They don't have any black distributors. They don't advertise much in black-owned media. They might donate to a couple of black organizations. They can throw a party at the National Urban League Conference. I've been to a couple. Those are good parties. But they're not doing business with us. They're partying with us. They're not doing business with us. With that kind of money, there should be Hennessy hospitals in Harvard. There should be new chemistry labs at every HBCU. Hennessy should have funded the Grand Valley State Entrepreneurship Center, and I should be teaching at it. Seriously though, 60 to 80% of their revenue, Hennessy should have large accounts at all the black banks, dozens of black Hennessy distributors, and significant advertising and black-owned media. You ask the Grand Rapids Times how much of Hennessy's billions are they getting. I will tell you, egg. Is that crazy? Am I crazy for saying that? Am I being unreasonable? Am I some kind of radical now because that's what they call me? They say I'm asking too much. I hope I'm not wasting your time this Wednesday evening, because these are not popular conversations to have. You try telling black folk to stop drinking Hennessy. It's righteous, it's positive, it's intelligent, but it's not a popular conversation to have. But at least I got you listening. And I'm not telling you these things to dog these people out. I'm just telling you things to show you the power of when we know what we don't know. Tennessee is thriving because we don't have the time to look for my brand, Heritage Link Brands. It's a wonderful black-owned wine company available in mass retailers all over the country. I think you can buy it right here in Grand Rapids. Husband and wife team, let me tell you about them, Harvard MBAs, Curry and Selena Cuff of Cincinnati. They founded Heritage Link Brands when they learned in 2005 that South Africa maintains a great wine industry, but only 2% of that wine industry comes from black-owned firms. South Africa, 90% black, 2% of the wine industry comes from black-owned firms. Now, Heritage Link Brands, my brand, is the largest company in the wine industry to import to America black-made African wines. Seven Sisters is one of those heritage brands. Because of apartheid, these seven sisters, the Brutus sisters, were forced to leave the tranquility of their beautiful South Africa home at a very early age. 20 years later, those sisters returned after apartheid, and started fulfilling their dream to create fantastic wines. Wonderful wines, but these wines would have failed without heritage-linked brands. My favorite Seven Sisters wine is Bucatrave. I get it at Jewel, my big grocery store chain in Chicago, and I drink as much Bucatrave as I can. I drink a lot of Bucatrave, I drink it all the time. But you know, I do it to help Selena and Carter Cup and those beautiful Seven Sisters reverse the rules of apartheid. I'm just getting my empowerment on one sip at a time. But if we all get behind Selena and Kari and heritage-linked brands, we're going to buy wine anyway. Why not buy their wine? Imagine what we can do for that Black family business. Imagine what we can do for Africa. Let me give you another quick story. 2009, that was the year I did my experiment. So I got two little girls, and Disney decided that one year that I decided I'm only going to support Black businesses to launch the first Black princess. And let me tell you something, I could not buy any of those Princess Tiana products, even though my children cried for them. And not because Disney was Disney, but because out of all those hundreds of millions of dollars they made from the Black community and Black culture, none of it benefited Black business. We could have put a tip on the shoelace thing for the shoes. We could have put the cover on the DVDs. We could have made some of the nightgowns. We could have done anything from all that Tiana fanfare. Finally, 3 years after Tiana, they did strike a deal with Carol's Daughter. I hope some of you know Carol's Daughter, a great brand out of New York. They could have done that with Pantene, with Suave, with L'Oreal, any of those companies, but they chose Carol's Daughter. And they chose Carol's Daughter because some Black consumers are showing some loyalty to Carol's Daughter. That was a big deal for them. Disney saw Carol's Daughter because we made them see them. You have to know, these big retailers, they do not want to give up space to these new, smaller brands. But when the community makes its preference for those brands known, they have no choice. That's why you see Hispanic brands and Asian brands all up and down your grocery aisle with hardly any Black brands. Those major retailers know, if I want Hispanic people to come into my store, if I want Asian people to come into my store, I better have Asian businesses and Hispanic businesses on the shelves. We have not made our preference plain, and that's why you do not see Black businesses on the shelves. So this was a big deal for Carol's Daughter. Now, Carol's Daughter, great story, Disney, let's hope that other businesses would engage her too. Carol's Daughter no longer has that deal. Why? Why does it always have to have that good times ending? Where we get so far, we get so happy, by the end of the episode, everything crumbles. That's what happened to Carol's Daughter, because she did not have the numbers to justify them having that contract with her anymore. I bought it. Did you? So the NAACP can make sure that Princess Tiana doesn't have images that are too offensive, and that's nice. But who's going to speak up for the businesses when these opportunities arise? Who's going to make sure that these valuable contracts do not get lost? I have to get you to start thinking about these questions, because these are the questions that create jobs. Who's going to ask these questions? Who's going to look out for us to make sure that we don't get exploited, like our Jewish friends do for each other? Who is looking out for our consumers, our wealth, our neighborhoods, our family, our future? Your chamber. And you're not getting behind your chamber. The chamber is the only group that has the wherewithal, the connections to make sure that opportunities like this don't pass us by. The chamber is the reason, the company that we need to get behind, but we're not. This is where we come in. We have to come in and support our chamber. I have to come in with the millions who are touched by our stand, the millions who I rally and educate and inspire with this data and this information, the millions who I hope are going to get behind Maggie's list. This is where I come in. That's where Renard comes in, president of the Grand Rapids Black Chamber, my heart and soul in Grand Rapids. That's where we come in. That's where Renee comes in, as she represents the 1,100 Black insurance agents from New York Black that you did not know existed. 1,100 Black businesses from this one company that you did not know existed. There should be no question about who you support if you want to get life insurance. You need to get behind these Black agents at New York Black. It's an army of Black businesses dedicated to Black families. These are the groups that are coming together to look out for us when these valuable opportunities arise. That's where we come in. We sharp, we proud, we smart, we strong. You remember those brothers? Think about it like this. Okay, I'll give you another example. Y'all saw Malcolm X. I know it's been, I don't want to age myself, but most of y'all saw Malcolm X, Spike Lee. Remember that scene when those brothers stood outside the hospital when the little boy was beat up or shot by the racist cops in the Malcolm X movie? Remember that? Y'all remember that? Remember Malcolm X stood outside that hospital. He was asking about the boy. He wanted to make sure that that little boy was not going to die and that he was being looked after. Remember Denzel? Remember when he said, if that boy dies, there's going to be trouble. Then the black doctor came out and assured him that the boy would live. He got his answer though, not because he stood there by himself. Just like Bernard can't stand here by himself. Just like Renee can't stand there by herself. Just like Aretha can't be out here cooking for herself. He got that answer because all those brothers were standing there behind him. And that's when Denzel did this. Y'all remember? Remember he did that? That's what he did. That's how we need to be. Just like that. And point to our businesses. That's the opportunity. That's me. That's Bernard. That's Eugene, who you're going to hear from next. That's Renee. Those are my 1,100 black agents. That's us, and that's our new black wealth movement. We're disciplined, we're smart, we're committed, we're sharp, and we're lined up, ready to support each other. The businesses, the hundreds and thousands of businesses that we're going to support together, the family legacies that we're going to build. And I just want to ask you, Grand Rapids, do you like that idea? Do you like that vision? Is it worth a try? We need to do it instead of coming up with all the excuses why we can't. You gotta try it, you gotta start. You might not see the world change, but you'll start to feel good as you do it. Every week, I look at the receipts I put in my little envelope. I still save my receipts from all the black businesses I support. It could be $5 from the Black-owned Burger King. It could be $40 from our black gas station. It could be a receipt from Carol Corey's dance studio that we drive out of our way for them to get their ballet lessons, or Carol's basketball practice. Maybe a deposit slip from our black-owned bank. But when we do that, just for a minute, the anger and the sadness, they just kind of fade away. We feel it. We feel how we are part of the movement. We're not changing everything, but at least we know we're part of the solution. It felt good knowing that the food we ate tonight was cooked by this sister, Doreen. It tastes better. The flavor come out a little more. Because you know that Amazing Grace, a local black-owned business, prepared it for you. You feel it when you stay in a black-owned hotel. You sleep better. The soap smells a little better. Coffee tastes better. These are the intangibles and the pride that you feel when you are meeting with Renee, your black New York Life agent. When you get that feeling that I get when I go to my black-owned Ace Hardware store, and the owner, when he sees me pulling up, he comes outside to greet me. Son, cousin, grandma, they all work there. That's the feeling that I get from supporting my businesses every day. And when we do that as a movement, we'll start to talk differently, see ourselves and be perceived differently. Our kids will see and do better. We'll change Baltimore, Grand Rapids, Cleveland, Chicago, Newark. We'll change this country. You can go to a black church. You can be a member of this black chamber. You can be a part of 100 Black Men, or National Black MBA, vote black, get elected black. But the blackest thing you can do, if you really care about the fate of the black community, is be black with your money. And be black with your influence. I'm almost done. I know you think I'm being tough on you and I'm yelling at you, but imagine the anguish I felt when I had to tell my little girls so, 2 and 3, my spoiled baby girls, and I told them no when they asked for the basics like shoes and toys and fresh meats and produce, as we tried to defend the concept they were too young to understand. And not because they couldn't afford something or because they didn't deserve it. I put them through it though because I love them. And that's how much I love you. That's the only reason I'm here. Because I love you. And that's why I'm asking you to make these sacrifices and take on these challenges and see things differently. I love you. So I want you to feel some pain too. I want you to sacrifice too. I want you to join our little movement. I want you to see my black New York life insurance agents. I want you to be a part of Maggie's list. I want you to do all of this because I love you. Now I'm going to ask you, do you love me back? Yes. Really? Yes. Do you really love me back? Are you proud of me? Yes. Then don't thank me, show me. Like I showed you and like I show the community every day. Like I'm going to show you Maggie's list, like I'm bringing my friends here to show you. This is what we do. We have to show and not talk and stop hugging and crying and thanking. We have to show. I get so much praise because of what I've been able to do with that year and preaching about and spreading all these truths. How courageous I am, how given I am, how committed I am, blah, blah. But the real praise belongs to all of you who are joining this movement. The real praise belongs to the gentleman who's going to come up next, and his name is Eugene. Yes, Eugene, I'm honoring you like I always do. I always put you on blast every time you come in from New York. Very busy father, very busy corporate executive, coming in to spend time with us in Grand Rapids. I don't know where I'd be without you. It's your courage that wakes me up every day. It's your commitment that persuades me not to give up. And it's because of you and your brilliant, bold, talented, and driven change agents. Stay committed, Eugene. Stay obsessed like I am with using the power as you have as a New York Life executive to defy the indignant reality with the certainty of a possibility. The possibility of 200,000 African American families creating and growing and recycling $50 billion in wealth. That is why we're here tonight. We are trying to get the 200,000 families to hook up with our black businesses so that we can create $50 billion in guaranteed black wealth. That's what we're trying to do. So Eugene, I thank you for supporting me. I thank you for supporting my chambers. And I'm bringing you to this group who says they love me. They say they love me. They say they want to show it to me. So I'm hoping that you'll show it to me by engaging Renee, Eugene, and all of his wonderful agents. You have agents right here just as committed as Eugene is. Eugene's going to lead. I'm going to lead. But when we do lead, you still have Renee. You still have Bernard. You still have Doretha. And these are the businesses that you need to support on a regular basis. When these agents come to you and they want to support your business, it's not just like when I go out my 3 miles to get my clothes cleaned and floors cleaners. I'm not doing that just to get my clothes cleaned. Or when I wait till Sunday to get my produce from black farmers who come to the west side and set up under a tent in the church parking lot. I'm not doing that just to get fruit. And when they write an insurance policy for you, or when they help you with your financial planning or planning for your estate, they're not just writing insurance. They are doing this because they are committed to making sure that black families are just as financially astute as other families. That black kids get to go to college, that black businesses can be supported. That's why my agents are coming to you tonight. I cannot have you thinking before I close that this has anything to do with New York life. This has to do with my finding, as I tour around this country, some fantastic black professionals, some fantastic black executives who are committed and as crazy as I am about the black community. And I don't think it would make any sense for me to show you how much I love you, if you tell me how much you love me, if I don't show you my family. And my family is in the $50 billion empowerment plan. These are the folks who are going to talk to you next, and I hope if you love me, you're going to listen and you're going to pay attention. Before I close, I'm going to just pay tribute to my mom. Most of you know when I've spoken in Grand Rapids, I always pay tribute to my mother before I leave. It hurts to leave events like this and still see suffering as I do. Because when I go home, all the businesses that you saw in that video, they're gone. That grocery store, he's gone. That bank, gone. The shoe store, the restaurant, the dry cleaner, all those businesses who were friends with my family and my kids loved them, they're all gone. So I wonder all the time, am I wasting my time on this movement? Black businesses keep dying, we keep having these events, people keep hooping and hollering, but nothing is changing. I'm begging you, don't let it fade. That feeling that you're having right now. Because Eugene is going to come up next to show you how easy it is to turn that feeling into actual empowerment. Eugene and I have dedicated our lives to this. We got big brains, big hearts, and an awesome journey. He, in trying to prove to his corporate peers and his superiors that black families do value themselves. He has to tell them at New York Life that black people can buy an insurance policy that goes beyond the funeral. He has to tell those people at New York Life that we do understand estate building, investing in our future, driving and planning for our prosperity. And then after that, he has to go out and prove to his own people the same thing. And that's what I gotta do. I gotta go out and prove to the world that black businesses are worth it. And then I gotta come home to my own people and prove that black businesses are worth it. We have earned, with our pain and heartache, a great wisdom and perspective that few can claim. Our big brains, our big hearts, our hard-earned expertise, and an unyielding love for you. That's all we're giving you tonight. And we give it to you because we love you and we believe in you. We respect you and we know that you care and you want to commit. So we're presenting this movement. Insurance you're going to get anyway, and shopping you're going to do anyway. But we're hoping that you do it with my black agents. And we hope the next time you think about getting coffee, next time you think about going to the salon, you'll think about going to Maggie's list first to make sure that that money is spent with a black business. No more excuses, too easy, too right, too necessary. My mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 2 months before we decided to launch the empowerment experiment. I was going to shut that year down in her honor so that I can be with her. She didn't let me. She made me do that year. She is the whole reason that I'm standing here today. And I have to wonder, as I think about that year, all those days that I should have been with her, helping her as she threw up and lost her hair and lost all that weight, and I was on the road preaching, or I was in the news trying to spread this message. So much of my mother's last year, I gave up for this. And now that she's gone, I have to wonder, was it worth it? Was it worth it? My businesses keep dying, my consumers keep lying, my partners keep faking, and the community keeps fading away. Was it worth it? And I hope that tonight, because y'all said that y'all love me, I hope that tonight you will show me that it is worth it. So many people put a lot of work into this evening, and I hope that you don't eat Aretha's great food and come here and clap for me and leave here less empowered than you came. You have to do something after this evening. Make an appointment with this sister Renee so that she can at least talk to you about the opportunity of the $50 billion empowerment plan. Join this chamber so that you can be a part of this movement that we're trying to create in Grand Rapids. And show me, your new friend who you claim that you love, that that year was actually worth it. Thank you all. Thank you all so much.
Next on our program is Eugene Mitchell. I'd like to first say thank you, Eugene, for coming to my city for the very first time. This is his first visit to Grand Rapids. He's coming all the way from New York. That's where our corporate office is housed. And he is our currently corporate vice president and manager of the African American market. I say currently because he's going places. He won't be there long. Under his leadership, there's about 1,100 agents, and he's responsible for the development, retention, and promotion thereof. And there's a program that he started back in 2011, the $50 billion Empowerment Plan. It's a 5-year plan, and we're in our 3rd year, correct? Okay. And that is where we're looking to put 50 billion transferable wealth into the African American community. And guess what? We are about $26 billion in. So we are looking to, $26 billion into this. So we're looking to wrap this up in next year, in the 2015. Okay. Eugene, he's authored and been featured in numerous industry publications, articles. He's also received the Business Mover and Shaker Award. He's also been named the Next Generation Business Leader. And he also earned his MBA in Finance and Management from New York University, Stern School of Business. And he holds a BA in Finance from Florida International University. Please help me give Eugene Mitchell a hearty New Grand Rapids welcome.
Thank you, Renee. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. I am thoroughly enjoying my my first visit to Grand Rapids. So thank you for having me here. I appreciate it. Appreciate the hospitality. I'm extremely pleased and proud to be here tonight to present alongside my good friend Maggie Anderson about the all-important topic of creating economic empowerment in the Black community, where Maggie takes an angle of us understanding our past, of those who've laid the foundation for us to be here, us getting a grasp of our potential today around the $1 trillion of earned income that we have, and the possibilities of what we can do by reinvesting some of that back into our Black businesses that can create successes, it can create role models, it can create jobs. My angle is just slightly different. Mine taps on my experience of 13 years in New York life, watching what other racist religions and ethnic groups do with financial tools and strategies that for many of us we don't know exist. All right? So before we get going, though, I want to honor my good friend Maggie, as she does to me. It is always an honor and so special to me. I'm touched, moved, and inspired by this woman's commitment and her sacrifice that she's made to this movement to change our community. You think of a woman with 2 advanced degrees. She studied under the President of the United States. She could really be at any large law firm or business around the country, making high 6 figures. But she sacrifices her family, to the tune of death threats, to the tune of being called the N-word, to struggling at times to stay committed and understand that we are a community worth saving. It's hard. Trying to rally 1,100 Black agents to see the vision and the opportunity of making change, for themselves to stay in the business and understand what many of us have never benefited from. How many of us have received an inheritance, received family money? So here it is, 1,100 Black agents trying to go empower other families to do the same without that context themselves. It's hard. It's hard to go out there every day and to not have a corporate support. At least I get a corporate paycheck every other week. Maybe this is what she does. So that's why it's so important that we support her in buying the book and continuing to have her speak and to plug her into other cities that we have friends, just to continue to spread this message. So Maggie, as being the activist mother, the Rosa Parks, as some has called her. It was in Atlanta the other day. Somebody said the modern day Harriet Tubman. Wow. Leading our folks to a better tomorrow. I mean, that's a huge calling that you have, and I appreciate all that you do. So thank you for that. I'm excited to share with you this $50 billion empowerment plan that I founded and created and have been implementing over the last 3.5 years. This is about empowering our families, our businesses, our organizations, and our institutions to create wealth for ourselves. It's about creating legacies for our children and endowments for all those struggling. Wonderful organizations and institutions, the churches that we know have done so much for us, but are in many cases stuck in old models. The Black colleges that are waiting for state money to help them, but state money's dried up. The organizations, remember the 100 Black Men. I mean, all those are out there that are trying to do well, trying to give back and empower the youth, that aren't sure a way to raise funds. As hard working as they are, my father was retired 2 years ago, and as well intentioned as they are, what I've been able to see in my corporate position, in the way of creating millions for ourselves, is something that they've never been taught, right? And you realize there's so much that we've not been taught. And I'll take it back to Maggie there. The 400 years that we've been here, the first 250 years we worked for free. We didn't have any economic empowerment, right? In fact, we were the only folks that I know that were purposely intended to be eradicated educationally, right? As a family, educationally, I said financially, and as a family unit. And so we took our history, our family, our money, and our mindset, right? Just to work. And then when that ended 100 years later, they said, okay, you're free to go and do as you wish. But we never taught you how to rebuild back. But as resilient as we are as a community, we created our own banks. We created our own insurance companies, our own funeral homes, our own shops and doctors and colleges, and we built back the best we could. Right, 100 years, despite all the struggles and challenges that Maggie alluded to, the lynchings of the business owners. As soon as we got ahead, how much we were knocked back. And then over the last 50 years, where civil rights came and we were told we have free reign to come and go anywhere we want, again, we weren't shown where to go and what to do. So in my mind, in many ways, we were the new kid on the block. And what happens to the new kid on the block? We get run over. We have our milk money taken from us, right? So put your money over here, invest it here, and all of a sudden it's gone. But say, who has the ultimate say, the man with money, but if you're asking questions for the man what to do with my money, you're going to end up losing your money, right? So the question I ask is, to whom do we go when we don't know? And for 400 years, we didn't know where to go, right? And I think, in many regards, many folks were trying to keep the real story from us, right? And so, what I've been able to see in this corporate position for 13 years, I sit amongst the cultural marketing group. So we have targeted outreach to the Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Hispanic, Indian, and African American markets. I lead the African American market. What I've seen these other groups do are leverage these financial tools and strategies in ways that I've never seen. For instance, in the Jewish family of 20, they got $1 million of insurance so the two oldest and the 18 others make the payments on it. Who's ever told us that? Right? And it's not about profiting off the death of grandma, but holding her up as the matriarch who's going to pay for everybody's college education. She's going to give them the down payment for the homes. She's going to let them start their own business. When you've got money in the bank, you can start your business. Right? Who's telling us how to do that? Right? In fact, it's the first time we're hearing it. The struggle is, and the brainwashing that we've had is that we're conditioned not to even accept this. So me and my sister went to my parents and said, we want to take out an insurance policy on your law. And you can imagine how well that went over, right? So it was about 7 years later, right, I said, I'll come back to you about this conversation about what I'm seeing other folks do. And he said, well, tell us more. I said, well, it's not about me and my sister. We're doing well for ourselves. How about we use the proceeds of that life insurance policy to pay for your grandchildren's college education and your great-grandchildren's education? That's what you could be known for. That could be the legacy that you leave. And they said, we like it. Okay? But they said, look, we're not going to pay for it. All right? So you can insure us, but we're not going to pay for it. You're the ones working, you pay. So we said, fine. So, again, who knew? But I went to ask some folks in New York Life. They said, oh, yes. You can take out a $500,000 policy, right? You insure both of them together. So no money goes until both of them pass. But for the $500,000, it's going to cost you $300 a month. So I'll ask you, me and my sister split the payment, $150 each. What else in America can you spend $150 for to get a guaranteed $500,000 at some point in the future? And oh, by the way, did I say life insurance proceeds transfer tax-free? So this is tax-free $500,000 at some point in the future. Who knew? Right? But this is about understanding our value and our worth to ourselves. So that's one generation. This is me insuring myself. So I'm sharing with you what some of the things that I've done. I want to overlay this to what Maggie's doing. And we want to open up the floor stage to get to the conversation, to get to dialogue back. Is that okay with you guys? Oh, sure. So for me, the light bulb didn't really go on for me about these products and strategies until I got promoted after 2 years at the company. I was in this leadership development program when I came in. I got promoted to an assistant vice president. And in the interoffice mail, I got a letter that said, congratulations on your promotion. As an appointed officer of the company, we want to take out $2.5 million of your life to benefit the retirement fund of your life. Okay? $2.5 million, not for me, not for my family, but for the retirement fund of New York. So I went and asked some folks, what does this about? Well, they said, this is, just sort of common practice here. Big companies do it, they call it corporate-owned life insurance. Banks do it, bank-owned life insurance. Small businesses do it. They call it key man policies. Right? You've heard of some of those? That if something happens to a key executive, There's opportunity for the business to continue to thrive, to replace somebody. We see you as an important person in the company. We just want to sort of make sure that we continue the path of New York. So, okay, I get that part of the concept. But where does $2.5 million come from? Right? Well, they say that, well, that's what they value you at. Right? I don't understand. You know, nobody's ever told me, we've never been taught to assess the value of ourselves. So how do they go about it? Well, there's different ways they figure it out. But an easy way is just to do a current value of your future earnings. So here you are, 30 years old. You're making $100,000 a year. We expect you to be here another 25 years, right? So at least retirement. $100,000 a year for 25 years is $2.5 million. That's without bonuses, that's without raises, that's without promotions. That's just hourly rate. Don't you see yourself worth that much? I said, well, I've never thought of it that way. Nobody's ever told me. For me, all I thought I had in the world was $60,000 of student loans. Right? That's what to get all the degree, $60,000 loans. Right? I had a car with 189,000 miles. Right? I drove up to Miami and they kept 2 hours in school in New York. And I had a small condo that I bought on Miami Beach with some of the student loan money. Don't tell anybody, right? But that's what all I thought I had in the world. I never thought about my own economic value. Right? Aren't I worth that to myself and my family? If I don't make it home tomorrow, don't my 2 children get shorted $2.5 million? But how many of us have been taught that? And in fact, there's a media and sort of there's a great book, Brainwashed by Tom Morello. He talks about sort of how we got to this point in America. He takes it back to Thomas Jefferson and his dilemma that he writes the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal, but he owned slaves. Something's off that the scenario there, right? But what it was is that sort of sending white folks and making black folks feel less than. And so currently today, when another man gets shot, another one goes to jail, we're made to believe in regards to we're worth less than. You ain't worth nothing, right? So why would you have $1 million of insurance if you're not worth it? All part of the brainwashing, all part of what keeps us down, not knowing our own value and our own worth, right? And you think about that, that's not only empowerment of wallet and finances for the family. This is empowerment of mindset. And the story that comes to mind for that is I have a good friend that I went to business school with. He asked me to be one of his groomsmen at his wedding, right? And he says, you've been in New York Life a while now, but what is it that you're so passionate about? I said, well, I realized when the company said, I'm worth a couple $1 million, that I had to, at least have that for myself, so at least at some point in the family, in the future, I pass that on to my family. And what I realized is that if I have $2 million, and we all went to school together, and we all have similar corporate jobs, we should all have at least $2.5 million each, right? But you, the best man, and the 3 groomsmen, and 5 of us here, if we follow that formula, then we would have $10 million at some point in the future that we're going to create and pass on to our family. Right? And when you know that you're going to do that, you all of a sudden have some higher expectation for your children. Who their friends are, who they're going to marry, that they're not just going to waste and spend the money, right? That they're going to do something big. If I make $2 million, that you've got to make at least $5. So this is an empowerment of mind as well as empowerment of wallet. Right? So this is what I'm realizing, this is the bigger pieces of this puzzle. And likewise, if we create 50 billion, the other part is we got to understand what we're spending it on. Because if we're going to create 50 billion, right, and all we're going to do is spend it, then all we do is contribute to the problem. So we're going to enhance our financial IQ here. Right? We got to understand how to invest it, how to build it, how to leverage it, how to pass it on. Right? So that's my parents and myself. The other part of the story I want to share with you is what I've done for my 2 children. Right? Because, typically, we see on TV and we've been bombarded in the hospitals to take out that little Gerber policy, right? That $10,000 policy at some point in the future is going to mean something to them. You can borrow against to go to college. There's no college I know that's going to be paid for by $10,000 of life insurance, right? But what I realized that other folks are doing it at a place like New York Life, is taking out I put on $250,000 policies on my children. Right? Because the key to life insurance is the younger that you get it, the cheaper it is. Because they expect it to live longer. And I'm talking to everybody, but I said, for many of us, life insurance has only been talked to for the most part about burial policies. Right? I only need enough to bury me. Right? And then there's all the myths that go along with the objections that go along with it. Right? Why would I want to leave my wife $1 million so she can run off with some other guy? Right? Or vice versa. Right? Or life insurance is a bad investment. Buy term and invest the difference. All things that we hear. Right? Oh, I don't need life insurance. The Lord will provide. Right? We've talked ourselves out of this tool, or been conditioned to never listen to the details of this tool. Right? And what I realized is that this is a way to guarantee passing wealth. Right? So bring it back to the children here. To put $250,000 on them, I pay $140 a month each. Right? But by the time they're 18, there's going to be $20,000 of insurance, cash value built up inside. Right? By the time there's 25, there's $60,000. By the time they're 35, there's $120,000. So this multiplies inside the policy because it's tax deferred. So when you double your money without paying taxes on it, it increases at a much higher rate. Right? There's actually a rule of thumb. If you double $1 a year, every year for 20 years, do you know how much you would have? Without paying taxes on it, how much? Over $1 million. But if you pay taxes on it, every year, do you know how much you would have? About $56,000. So when the policy that can continue to gain the interest on it and multiply and dividends from the company continues to build, this is how the kids will build up the cash value inside. On my daughter's policy, by the time she's 65, if we never touch the policy, never take any of the money out, right? Just let it continue to build interest, like at the bank, but without the taxes on it, right? There'll be $750,000 built up in it, and still $250,000 in death benefit in the face of it. Right? What a beautiful retirement plan to pass to her. Right? And oh, by the way, that's it. I'm only paying 20 years at $140. It's done after that. See, this is some of the, like I said, the tools and strategies we don't even know we don't know exist. And it gets deeper because, a life insurance policy is exempt from the financial aid form. So if there's $50,000 built up in the life insurance policy, it never has to be reported for financial aid. Who would know that? Not us, right? The folks who create these policies, the folks who create these laws, this is what we've been excluded from for so long. Right? So this is about understanding the rules of the game. So we're 400 years behind, trying to catch up. We've got $1 trillion of earned income. To think about what we could do with this. Right? So that's my family. So we're going to create $500,000 on my parents, $2.5 million on myself, and $250,000 at least each on my children. At some point in the future, this is guaranteed to be paid out. Right? So this is about sort of understanding, the Mitchells will go on, and they will know me for helping start that. That's what we got to understand. Legacy. That's one family. This $50 billion empowerment plan is about multiplying this across the community. Think about this, 200,000 African Americans with at least $250,000 of life insurance. Hopefully you realize that's not a lot now. But they told me I'm worth $2.5 million. If you're making $60,000 a year, you're going to work 20 years, what's that? $1.2 million. So you could at least have $1 million on yourself, right? If you love your family and you want to create a legacy, I want us to talk about the tune of millions of dollars, right? But I'm just bringing it down to a simple number, $250,000. If 200,000 African Americans insure their parents, themselves, and their children to the tune of at least $250,000, that will create $50 billion of tax-free future income for our community. Now, what can't the French families and businesses do, of 200,000 people do with $50 billion? Right? This is about for us fights, doing for ourselves, redirecting what we already have. Right? Folks talk about, but it's expensive. The $100, the $150 that you're spending on the parents, the $150 that you're spending on the kids. But we're so conditioned. Who doesn't have a $150 cable bill? Oh, you find money for that, right? Who doesn't have a $150 cell phone bill? Oh, we find money for that, right? Okay, who doesn't have $150 car insurance? Maybe cheaper here. It's a bit more than that New York City, right? But we find the money for what we want. The new Jordans, how much do we spend? If we thought about what we were doing with it and reinvested it in ourselves, we could create $50 billion. That's the size of the market capitalization of General Motors. If you added up all the dealerships and all the factories and all of the cars that are out there, that's $56 billion. What we're saying we can create with these tools and strategies just in 5 years on 200,000 black folks is the same size as General Motors. Do you understand the potential of this? Is this a message that you can get behind? Do you see yourself as wanting to be one of those 200,000 people to help create that? You guys with me here? Do you see how we can reinvest that back into the black businesses to create 1 million jobs? See, I believe that when we look at our community and we see all these what we call problems, right? But when we see these domestic violence problems, when we see these riots and shootings that are going on, right? But when we see the teenage pregnancy and the the wedlock birth rate that we see, we're looking at those as some of the problems, but I wonder, are those symptoms of a deeper rooted problem, right? Is that we have not been shown how to build, how to create a better future for ourselves, how to be on another path, right? Because I'm wondering if there's an inheritance in line for the children, right? If there's a college fund set up for them, would they be out there looting and rioting on the streets? I'm thinking that we can change the dynamic of our own community by understanding how to create and build process.